Hey y'all, Unbreakable here. So, we talked recently about maladaptive coping skills. Skills that we learned to cope with the traumas or the stress or the anxiety that we have gone through or that we continue to go through. And I wanted to talk today about trauma responses. Disclaimer. I am not, nor will I ever claim to be an expert, a mental health professional, or a know it all. I am simply a very vocal survivor. I share my story, my experience, my strength, my hope, my ups, my downs, my challenges, my own toxic traits. I share me. So, trauma responses was something that I have learned about over my healing journey over these last almost 4 years. And I didn't even know what they were. Of course, it was my therapist who had to bring them to my attention and walk me through understanding them and recognizing them. Trauma responses essentially are maladaptive coping skills as well. They are responses that we have adapted and obtained to keep ourselves safe, to keep us calm, to keep us sane, to keep us level. They're responses that we have picked up over the years when dealing with trauma, stress, anxiety, depression. Y'all know me. I talk about what's real in my world. I don't sugarcoat anything. I share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly. One of the trauma responses that I recognized over the last couple of years was that I would run. When I first started getting back into the dating world, if something felt good, I would run. If something felt calm and peaceful, coming from a world of chaos, and calm and peaceful felt strange. Calm and peaceful felt boring. I said what I said. Calm and peaceful felt boring. It's not what my mind and my body and my soul and my spirit had been accustomed to. I was accustomed to chaos, toxicity, drama, all of it. And so good felt boring. So I would run. If something felt like in a relationship, some new relationship or new date, if something felt like, oh God, this is too good to be true, I would run. If there were no red flags and it crossed my mind that this might be a really good guy, but what's he going to do to hurt me? So I'm going to hurt him before he hurts me. I would run. That was nothing more than fear. Running was fear. Fear of the what ifs, the but, the could this be true, the this doesn't feel right, the I've never experienced this before. Running was one of my trauma responses. Protect myself, keep myself safe, don't allow anyone in, don't allow anyone to hurt me. Running was one of my trauma responses. Anything in excess is not healthy. Oftentimes, we get into situations where one of our trauma responses is that we resort to medicating ourselves. Alcohol, gambling, you name it. We get into these excessive behaviors because that's a trauma response. Well, let me tell you, let me be honest and frank with you. You see my wine up here? That's my wine rack. I love that wine rack. Is an alcoholic and an addict. And I don't do, and I very seldom drink. But every once in a while, I'd like to have a glass of wine or a drink, like once every 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. I'm just not a big drinker. But anytime I would bring something into the household to have for whenever I did want to drink, it was gone in less than 24 hours. Hell, in less than an hour, it was always gone. So when I initially got out, I did that because I can. Because there's nobody here drinking it all up. It was kind of that response to me taking some of my power back, and kind of a F you kind of thing. Like, see, you tried to say in court that I was an alcoholic, and yet I can't even, those bottles probably have dust on them. I don't know how long they've been up there. Trauma response. I'm telling you, I have had times where I have told my therapist, I wish I could be an alcoholic. I wish I could drink it all away. I'll have one glass of wine and then stick the bottle in the fridge, and it'll sit there for 3 or 4 or 5 months until I finally just throw it out. I wish. That's a trauma response. I wish I could be an alcoholic. I wish I did. But I don't. I'm not. Oftentimes we get into those excessive behaviors, though, don't we? As a trauma response. Medicate the pain, numb the pain, numb the anxiety, numb the racing thoughts. Anything in excess is not healthy. Keeping busy, nonstop busy, is a trauma response. Because if I'm always busy, then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to feel it in order to heal it. I don't have to go there. I don't have to have the flashbacks. I don't have to have the memories. I don't have to have the nightmares. If I just stay busy enough, I'll forget about all of it. Trauma response. Isolation. Trauma response. If I don't let anyone in, if I don't talk to anybody, I don't see anybody, I don't leave my 4 walls, I only go where I'm not going to have to interact with people, I can't be hurt. No one can hurt me. I don't have to worry that I'm going to encounter some type of toxicity. Because if I encounter some type of toxicity, I may just spiral down. Trauma response. There's so many maladaptive coping skills that we have that are trauma responses. Our brain, I've said it before, I've talked about it before, our brain can only handle so much. It can only handle so much trauma. It can only handle so much stress. It can only handle so much anxiety, so much depression. It can only handle so much before we have meltdowns, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, depression sets in. Our brains can only handle so much. Especially for any of us who have gone through childhood traumas. Going through childhood traumas, oftentimes we don't even remember it until years on down the line. Because our brain is going into trauma response. Okay, this little person cannot handle this right now, cannot process this, is not safe by recognizing or realizing what it is that they're going through. So let's file that away in the file cabinet. Because this little person cannot process that. This little person can't think about that. Trauma response. During the I would try my best to disassociate, remove myself from the moment and take a step out of that. So I didn't have to think about it. So I didn't have to deal with it. So I could just detach from it until it was done. Trauma response. I remember the first time that I experienced disassociation. It terrified me. The was poking the bear, poking the bear, poking the bear, poking the bear, poking the bear. And the bear couldn't handle it anymore. And I lost my you-know-what. I didn't even recognize myself with my reactive. I didn't even recognize my reactions. I didn't recognize who I was during those moments of my reactions. But I was raging, yelling, screaming, cursing. And I remember like it was yesterday that I felt this out of body experience. Like here I was right here looking down at myself. Dissociation, trauma response. And disassociated, I couldn't stop it. I was dumbfounded at what was going on. I felt out of control. I felt unsafe. I felt terrified. Our bodies and our brains can only handle so much. So we have trauma responses. To this day, angry voices, trigger. And I freeze. If I hear angry, violent voices, I freeze. I feel my anxiety going up and I freeze and I can't move. Yet I'm thinking in my head, get out, get yourself safe, get away from this, but I can't move. I'm frozen. Trauma response. There's so many things that our bodies and our minds adapt to and utilize when we're in the midst of trauma or we've gone through trauma. Our minds keep us safe. Tuck away memories. Shut down. Disassociate. Trauma response. Anything in excess is not healthy. What's one of your trauma responses? Let's have some open, honest conversation here in the comments. Let's talk about the real. Let's talk about what our trauma responses are. I've shared some of mine. You share some of yours because we're not alone. Like, we're not crazy. This is the way our mind was made, and it is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing by keeping us safe, by keeping us sane. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. But we can reprogram it, change the coding that's there. We can stop those old negative trauma responses, those old negative behaviors, those old repeating thoughts. While our mind does work first and foremost to keep us safe, we do have the ability to reprogram it. You're not alone. You're not crazy. I can assure you that. We all have our own trauma responses. We all have our own maladaptive coping skills. We all have our triggers. We all have the situations that we don't know what to do, or we feel like we're going crazy, or we feel like there's something wrong with us because, good God, nobody else is going through this. Nobody else is feeling this. Like, I've got to be crazy. I've got to be out of my mind because this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going through. You're not. I assure you, you're not. Maladaptive coping skills and trauma responses are so much more prevalent than you realize. And I know you feel alone, like you're the only one going through this. You're the only one, like, I'm crazy because this is what I'm feeling, or this is what I'm doing, or these are the choices that I'm making. You're not. 100% you are not. Let's open the lines of communication and have some honest talk here in the comments. Let's talk about what our trauma responses are, because maybe your trauma response is something that someone else is going through and they're thinking to themselves, I'm crazy, I'm sick, I'm insane. Let's share with each other, support each other, and uplift each other through our healing journey. What's your trauma response? Y'all go be unbreakable.